Good evening, everybody. Welcome to EduTALK. As you know, EduTALK is on every Tuesday. You get new episodes every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. If you don't want to wait for it, you can wait. You can watch the other ones as well as join us. After we premiere the video, then you can have unlimited time to access the videos and also browse our website. No, we're on. It's Dr. Miguel Barker and myself. We're on here to discuss some of the most relevant topics in education, as well as the ones that actually influence education across the globe and sometimes right next to us at home. Dr. Barker, we're winding down July, but we realize that we're heated. We're in this heated race in America here, and you're viewing it from England with the election season with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, along with whoever will become vice president candidate for Vice President Kamala Harris. And we know already that on the other side, we have JD Vance for Trump with the Republican Party. So these things affect, and the reason why we're talking about it affect education in general. We look from outside of the politics and see where policies actually affect our educational decisions. And of course, you're not working in America, but you can see from your end who having background in policy development and leadership and being an author of books with something to do with leadership policy in education. It's right that we take the approach and look at how this can influence us. And of course, Kamala Harris is partial Jamaican, but we don't say somebody's half Jamaican. We say they're Jamaicans. Dr.
Yeah, that's true.
Barker, yeah.
Yes.
Welcome.
Good evening, or good afternoon, or good night, to our listeners. It is exciting times. So, yeah, it's exciting times, you know. Good to see you, Dr. Dice. But
Yeah.
exciting times if if when the election was happening 2 weeks ago, you were one of those people who say, I don't care what's going on, I give up, I just watch what's going on, and resign themselves to a certain outcome.
Yes.
I think what has happened in the past 2 weeks, and that includes the attempted assassination of Donald Trump,
Mm-hmm.
and then the subsequent resignation of, well, not the resignation, but the decision by Joe Biden to not seek re-election.
Yeah. It feels
And
like a resignation.
yeah, and then the anointing, appointing,
Yeah.
identifying, endorsing of Kamala Harris,
Mm-hmm.
then you know it is exciting times. And Miles, I'm on no,
Yeah. That's Miles, everybody, my best friend.
yeah. So it is exciting times because at this time there's a lot happening, and I suppose one of the things that as educators, that we talk about is fundamental rights, and part of any education system is to provide students with the knowledge of the rights that they have.
Yeah.
And so one of the campaign, both of the candidates represents polar opposites somewhat in how they view those rights. And so for people who are in America and votes in America, and they have clear choices,
Mm-hmm.
there are clear choices in which based on what you believe. I don't think I've seen any American election where the candidates are as stark in relation to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's very
It is
clear.
not an election for the undecided. There's no one who can make a case for sitting on a fence.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
cannot go, I'm sitting it out. That to me is an irresponsible response. This is an election where everybody can find a choice.
Yes, I
And
totally.
I think that's what I have taken away from it.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. Because when I look on it, and you brought up a good point earlier, saying if somebody 2 weeks ago, if they were running election, or ask anybody like myself, what's your interest in it? To be honest with you, I would say I'm on the fence, or it could go both ways. And then I started looking at this document that the Republicans sent out, and it's online. People can view it. It's a public document, Project 2025, and the argument in Project 2025 with the different sectors and departments and restructuring of the government, so to speak, and the structure of the country. You look at that and you might agree or you might disagree with certain things in there, with the restructuring of the political system in America and the social system. And then you look at one of the things that the Democratic Party took into consideration is the fact of the matter in project, and the reason I'm bringing up Project 2025 is it relates to a very deeply connection with educational change, that they will put away with the Department of Education because it's not serving its purpose. That's what coming out of Project 2025 from the Republican Party suggests, that it's not fulfilling its role, it's not giving options to people. So basically, so let's done away with it. It's not suiting any purpose. So the Democratic Party suggested that no, this is really crazy. If you're looking at done just the dismantling the whole idea of the Department of Education. How about reinforcing it and strengthening it and yes, give school options to families, but
Yeah.
wherever there is weakness in the department, let's strengthen it. Let's give people options, let's strengthen it. But don't dismantle something that has been working for people in general. And then there are a
Well,
bunch of different things coming out of that as
yeah, I
well.
think, what that Project 2025 document is is designed to provoke, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and designed with a frame that the 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 re-election of Donald Trump was inevitable.
Hmm.
So now might as well we begin to drip feed some of these ideas. I think given what has happened in the past week or so, there will be a lot of people saying maybe we were too arrogant
Yeah.
and too confident to produce a document like this. Now,
Yeah.
from what I know, Donald Trump has disassociated himself from the document. But
Hmm.
from what I also know is that the majority of the people who wrote the document had somewhere along connected to Donald Trump. So you never know. People don't necessarily have to be on the same. No, they don't have to agree with each other on everything in order to agree on a thing.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and people who are strategic can make a deal with someone they don't like
Hmm.
if the outcome is something they both benefit from.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
stuff like those are hard to pin on anyone, but the beneficiaries of these things are obvious. So that's how you look at it. But yeah, I mean, the idea of the Department of Education and so on, I still don't understand what that means, because effectively it's a service, unless what they mean. I think, you see, when you listen to some of these ideas, they come back to some fundamental differences that used to be used to define the different parties.
Hmm.
Nowadays, it has gone to name calling and so on. But there was a time when the issues that divided the parties in America were just how both agree with the principle of government.
Yes.
Both agree that there's a separation of powers.
Hmm.
Both agree that there's the executive, there's the judiciary, and then there's the legislature. And they agree that these things, and the Supreme Court in America, the legislature and the judiciary so the judiciary represents the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
They all agree on that and they respect it and they want to come across as people who believe that these are fundamental pieces of America. The president is an executive functioning person of lots of autonomy.
Mhm.
The Supreme Court is the final decision on how the Constitution should be applied, and people did that responsibly. And the legislature knew that despite the differences, they
Mhm.
had to work together, right?
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah.
there are what used to define the parties would be stuff like how do you govern? So the Republicans sat in a corner that says states' rights.
Mhm.
America is a federation of states, but ultimately we govern ourselves, which is what our governor is required to do. There are certain things we want the federal government to do, but please do not meddle into state affairs.
You're right,
And
right.
the big argument would be this is not something that the government should be telling us to do.
Mhm.
And that still resonates, that kind of idea.
Mhm.
And a Democrat would maybe say there are certain things that, if left to their own, states will never see them as important because states are too small to see this as a big picture.
Mhm.
And so they would argue for more government control in order to govern properly. So what you normally find is a tension of state rights versus federal
Yeah,
over,
yeah,
over or they used to have a term, over something. But more like federal, pushing too far into areas that they don't
yeah.
believe.
Like
So the
big.
Department of Education represents one of those fundamental
Mhm.
issues where at some point it was agreed through that the Brown versus Board
Yeah, yeah.
issue
Mhm.
that it is important that this is seen as a federal issue and
Mhm.
not as a state issue. Because if left to the states, they are going to have segregation in some
Yeah,
states, right?
yeah.
And that
Yes.
would be legal in those states, but other parts of America, no. The
Mhm.
government of the day decided that these are important, that everybody has a right to an education, it shouldn't be segregated, blah, blah, blah. So when you hear these people start talking about like dismantling the Department of Education, ultimately what they mean is to put that decision back into the decision of states, who will
Yes.
then determine, should we talk about critical race theory?
Yeah.
Should we teach the true history of America?
Mhm.
These are the things that they believe that is a federal. The word I was looking for was overreach. So
Overreach. Yeah.
overreach, right? So I
Mhm.
think that's where when you hear these conversations, it is really coming back to the key arguments that separated the party, unless an emotive conversation. So there's a
Mhm.
case,
Yeah, there is. And
there's
you
a case
brought up,
that
yeah, a good point you brought up too with the Constitution with education, because there's nothing in the Constitution that really gives the right to education. There's no federal clause or anything in there.
exactly. So that's why they can play with those
Yeah.
things. So they feel the federal it's an overreach.
Yeah, they know. And a lot of people who fight for education, some of them don't really know that it's not in the Constitution. I think it's a constitutional right to educate
Yeah,
somebody.
that's why most of the projects are like when I think it was George Bush had No Child Left Behind.
Yeah, yeah.
Then Barack
Obama,
Obama had another one called I
race to the
think
top.
Race to the Top,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
so on.
yeah.
So these fail eventually because the states have don't they just don't implement them.
Yeah, let me say something because you brought up a good point with this state. If the federal government, since there's no constitution, but there are amendments like the 14th Amendment, and you mentioned board versus Board of
Brown
Education.
versus Board, yeah.
Yeah, and those things actually, those cases and the cases basically, they actually gives some groundwork, some firm foundation on why is it important for the federal government to have some say in the education. Because which one of the things that you brought up, and I don't want it to slip away here, is if the states have the right for only the overseer of educational opportunities and access to education, then it might turn out to be, yes, segregated education. But keep also Moreover, some of the states even have slavery on their books still. They haven't gotten rid of slavery in their own state constitution. So that will even cause more problems to people in that state if you
Yeah.
leave it up to them. And you mentioned critical race theory, which is having a fight because a lot of people don't understand critical race theory. They think that it is to cause
Indoctrinate.
problems for yeah for white people and more access to black people and so on, but it's really not a beating over the head of these people. It's really to have a conversation, having a conversation, a conscious conversation about race and where race falls in line with the construction of a country like America. And if we can actually create avenues to have a deeper discourse about these um these conscious tenets in our discourses. So it's not to say that that black people are better than anybody else or white people are slaving everybody else and beating them over the head. It's really not about that. And a lot of people really need to look at critical race theory and to see what exactly it's about and who created it for the purpose, instead of saying that it's all Black Lives Matter, it's all this, it's all that. It's not that. It's really not boiled down to that. But on the tenets of education and democracy and the election and so on, is to look at when people are casting their votes, is to look at how exactly my vote contribute to this decision that will affect me in the future. How will it affect me personally in the future when I vote against something or I vote for something? Because it's not just voting for a one of the people on the ballot, but it's actually looking at certain other options on the voting ticket. Because you go there and you think that you're putting your vote against one other person, but you have several other things that you're voting for in your state, as it were, in the US. So people need to look at the election as something very important in America, or in any election right across the board, except for communistic societies, and to see what you're actually voting for. It's not just for a president or one of the representative in your county or in a state. It's a lot of things that you vote for. They really, JFK said something in the 1960s that before he died and they sift him out. Um, he said that the ignorance of one voter is very dangerous to democracy. And
Yeah.
in this case, right now, what we're talking about is lack. We really need a little bit more reduction in ignorance, because information is out there and we need to when somebody like one of the people running for president, jump up and say something on the microphone where this is the only vote you need to put in, or we want your vote for this thing to happen. Why do you need my vote? What are the policies around your running for election? Not just the shouting and the screaming on from the microphone, but what exactly are you doing for me and for
Yeah.
my constituency, so that you will earn my vote? And if
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't hear that from you, I'm not gonna vote for you. Or what exactly? Because we get a lot of benefits, and I don't really want to say one or the other on here on the show, but we get a lot of benefits from one party compared to the other. What exactly is happening to low income families? What exactly is happening to kids in school? How are they benefiting? What exactly is happening to even breakfast programs, to lunch programs? Are we getting good balanced meals in the schools? Who are the people who are giving us these things? what are
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
are people giving us in terms of access to the right to education and so on and so forth? So look at that.
Yeah.
Barka,
So
you
I
have
think
anything else to share before we switch
not
to talking
really, I
about
think
Kamala
as it is a very open race, I think the main thing I'd say to all educators, keep an eye on it. Make
Yes.
sure, make sure that you are informed So you're not an ignorant voter. And yeah, as I said, there are clear choices. So you need to
Yeah,
decide what you stand for. As I say, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
anything.
So make sure you decide what you stand for and encourage people to use their franchise, exercise their franchise, as I say. So
Yeah.
yeah,
What
I think
about
that's
Kamala? Let's talk a little bit about Kamala Harris because we're all Jamaicans here. You know, we mix. A lot of Jamaicans are very mixed. I'm sure you're mixed. I'm mixed with a lot of races, you know. So race is not a big issue in Jamaica unless you start seeing different types of people having money in Kingston or Montego Bay or on the North Coast. And you say, wow, those people are fairer complexion or darker complexion, but they have money. So you look at race.
money
But
separate people. Yeah.
yeah, you called me the other day, or we were talking, and I didn't notice that Kamala Harris actually spent some time in St. Anna. And I watched a video when you called me, and you said that I literally went online and I pulled up the video of her saying that she actually spent some time in St. Anne, and her people are from St. Anne. And I grew up in St. Anne. I mean,
Yeah, I
this is
know that. I
really,
know that.
really cool.
So
Amazing.
that is life, isn't it? So I think, Barack was definitely a biracial, the first biracial president. His mother was white, his father was African.
Yes,
And so you see, one of the things that, and is a bit controversial, what it takes to navigate the American system, to rise above some of the systemic barriers,
yes,
it is clear that certain people can navigate it better than others.
yes,
And Barack being biracial and not necessarily traditional African American, in a sense, not shaped by the slave experience, as
yes.
someone was able to transcend and connect beyond. I'd say Camilla, again, not an African American in that context,
Mm.
is a is a dual heritage person. Yeah, in that
Yeah.
sense, where she is Indian and not mixed Indian, full Indian
Only Indian, yeah.
and full Jamaican in that
Yeah.
sense, right? So she has two clear heritages that collided within her, intersected with her,
Mhm.
that none of them are American in that sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's no American experience that she would trace in her heritage except the immigrant experiences of her parents. Apart from that, her time in the US and her generational timestamp in the US began when the
Mm.
parents immigrated as educated people.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
And top universities as well, UC Berkeley and Stanford, right?
yes.
So
Yeah.
what she has is an interesting launch pad to
Hmm.
being who she is. And, you know, she has shown that she is maybe more than anyone who has ever been qualified to run for president.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
maybe the most qualified because she had a career before she was a politician. For
Yeah.
26 years, she was working in the prosecutorial department to the point where she got to Attorney General of the
Hmm.
largest justice department in the US.
Yep, yep.
So she has a record of work and producing and
Mm.
being, you know, and also the right side of the law, to be fair, if you want to judge her like that as well. So extremely proud.
You do have a point, Barker, with the outside experience with the heritage. People from America, and this is not bashing American, African American so much, but the African American experience, it tells you something because I've lived in America and people call me African American too. And I would say, no,
Because that's the only concept them
yeah,
have of a
I'm
person.
Caribbean. I'm Caribbean. I'm just like
Yeah, but they
Alexander
don't.
Hamilton.
I had a friend from Canada,
Yeah.
teacher was working with me, and he said there is no, in Canada, or his experience, every black person that he came across, he considered them in his head as African American. He didn't
Mm.
have another conceptualization of black people. So there was this monolith that there are many people still in the world. Because
Yes.
remember, they'd have gotten that through sports. they'd have
Yeah.
gotten that, the Martin Luther Kings, they'd have gotten that through. And if there is no lived experience around them, then they would use that to determine that Black people are, in a sense, they would use them interchangeably. So the deep meaning of African American did not resonate beyond a description of color for
Yes.
many. There are
Yes.
many people in the world like that. So when they
Yeah.
say you and I in America, their conception is that you're African American.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, we need to, and it's easy to blame people for these
Yeah.
things. But
Yeah.
the other part of it is, it's understanding these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
It's
may I get
all right.
bombarded out in this space.
No, no,
So
I know, and I appreciate the vibe. I appreciate the vibe.
I think the
All
best
right,
we
so
can do.
yeah, man, it's very good. So we'll talk again. It's very good topic. We'll definitely touch bases on this again as the election get close by and this dissect some of these concepts. All right, Dr. Miguel Barca, see you next week. Same time next week, 8 p.m. Eastern time
Yeah,
for
yeah, PM
EduTALK.
can do. Tuesdays. Yep.
Yeah. And guys, drop your comments in the section below. If you want to know something about anything, just drop your comments. Do your own research. Don't be hanging on the fence. Choose a side and bat, as they say in cricket, bat for that side. Choose a side. Okay. All right. What good, everybody. Enjoy your week. And it's coming up to August. We love August month. Take it easy, and we'll see you next week again. Take care. Bye, everybody. Barca.
Bye bye. Take care. Be safe.